Lovely, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Richard. As Nick said, I'm currently the UKRN local lead for Bristol. I'm not actually an active researcher. I'm a research project manager who runs projects at the moment in the schools of geography and psychology. So I have more of an overview, I guess, of the research process. I'm not actually personally at the coalface. And I just wanted to spend a bit of time today talking about the Bristol Reproducibility Network, which is the UKRN local network here at Bristol, which many of you hopefully have heard of, but for those that haven't, this is a sort of introduction and an idea of what we do and why we do it. The starting point is the UKRN, the UK Reproducibility Network, which has been mentioned a few times already. It is a national peer-led consortium of partners who promote essentially research improvement in the UK. So better research, and by that we mean research that's more rigorous, it's reproducible, and is transparent. So the sort of open research agenda, sort of broadly, if you like. And current activities that the UKRN are involved in, their sort of flagship project at the moment is the Open Research Programme, which is a 5-year Research England funded programme, which is trying to accelerate uptake of open research practices. There's also various other projects, two in particular I highlight, Meteor and STAR. Meteor is looking at meta-research, STAR is looking at sharing of data. They also have quite a large collection now of resources and primers, introducing sort of open research methods and focusing on reproducibility in some cases. They also are behind various events, webinars, seminars, and other tools and resources that you can find on their website. So I would certainly encourage you all to visit the website. And we have Deanne and Neil was here today, hiding right at the back. So if you have any sort of questions about UKRN and what they do, I'm sure you can grab Deanne later on after the talks and have a chat. I know she's also got some copies of the UKRN annual report, which you're welcome to take away today. One set of resources in particular that I'd like to flag up are the UKRN have produced are the Open Research Across Disciplines papers, if you like, reports. These are, I think, a really useful way into open research. Maybe if it's something that you're relatively new to, maybe you're trying to encourage your colleagues to do more in this area. And these provide a collection of sort of case studies and resources on a sort of discipline-specific basis. So it's a really nice way in, I think, for people who are perhaps coming at this for the first time. The UKRN community, broadly comprises of three main groups. The institutional leads group, the ILs, these are relatively senior members of staff at UK universities who can represent the activities of UKRN on the sort of senior management group. We're very fortunate here at Bristol that Marcus Manafo is our institutional lead. He was kind of behind UKRN being set up initially back in 2019, and he's currently the chair of the supervisory board, so he's very, very familiar with UKRN. And equally, as in his role here at Bristol as the Associate Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research Culture, he has a direct report up to the executive management team. So he's very well placed to sort of talk about open research in very high circles. The second group I'll mention here are the stakeholder engagement group. This is a collection of funders, publishers, sort of learner societies and other instituted parties who essentially sort of help set the agenda for UKRN. They work alongside to give an idea of what topics, what activities UKRN perhaps should be looking at. And then the third group of third community are the group of local network leads, of which I'm one. And these are the local networks are intended to be a sort of grassroots collection of communities within institutions who are trying to exert sort of pressure from the bottom up in terms of making change. So whereas the institutional leads are trying to act from the top down, the idea of the local networks is that there's a groundswell of activity at the bottom which can exert influence from there. So as I said, the UKRN local networks are meant to represent the grassroots network of researchers and research support staff at institutes. And I guess they serve two main purposes. The first is that they provide a mechanism for advocating and promoting the work of UKRN within an institute. And secondly, they provide a very useful point of contact for UKRN. So as you can see, there's currently around 75 local networks, and that provides a a very good way. Having a single point of contact for each institute is a much more efficient way of organising things. But a key fact here probably is that the local networks are self-organised. So UKRN doesn't sort of dictate exactly how they should operate or how they should look. They let institutes to sort of decide that for themselves, depending on what fits best within the institutional structure. They do provide things like a example job description for the local network leads, but it's very much left up to the institutes to implement that as they see fit. At Bristol, we have implemented it via something called the Bristol Reproducibility Network. This was established, I think, in 2019, and colleague Hugo Pedder, who some of you might know, was initially the lead, and he's worked very hard on getting a network up off the ground and up and running. The main tangible presence at the moment, I guess you'd say, is a SharePoint site, which is where I try my best to promote UKRN activities and open research activities more general via sort of news stories, via alerts about events that are upcoming, new papers and resources that are published. There's also a link through to the Open Research at Bristol blog, which is something that has been running for many years now. The library research support team sort of initially ran it, but recently the local network has taken sort of joint ownership of that. So that's a place where I'm a hope that we'll be able to showcase some sort of open research that's happening at Bristol. And also there's various signposts to other open research resources on the SharePoint site. So that's the link at the bottom. I'd certainly encourage you to give that a visit if you haven't been there before, just to see what's going on and keep up to date with the sort of latest open research news. Also worth saying, previously, when Hugo was the lead, there was more interactive activities happening. There was some early on. There were some meetings of the local network. There was also journal clubs and seminars run, things like reproducibility, as again previously mentioned, which is a sort of a journal club, and those sort of happened for a while and have fallen away recently. So that, again, that's something that potentially would like to reinstate, given enough enthusiasm within the network. Just a quick snapshot of the network as it currently stands, the local network. There's around 75 staff who have signed up to the local network. As you might expect, I guess, in terms of the affiliation, it's dominated by life sciences and health sciences. And in particular, we're lacking representation from engineering, perhaps surprisingly, arts. So that's certainly one of our aims, is to try and increase that diversity. In terms of the career stage, it's actually quite an encouraging story. There actually is a nice mix of people from different stages of their careers, and that's really healthy, because I think although you want sort of senior staff perhaps have more impact and can help bring about open research more easily in terms of having greater ability to dictate how things happen, I think often they have less time and perhaps less knowledge of what's going on, and actually you need a groundswell of early career researchers and PhD students and maybe master's students who can also provide that sort of bottom-up impetus for things to change. So I think having that mix is really healthy. That's something we want to retain. The aim of the local network is, as I've just said, to try and ensure this diversity of staff across the university, also including research support staff, so people from professional services who are not actually doing the research but are helping deliver it. And we want to grow it into a diverse and particularly active community. So at the moment, it feels a little like it's there. The sort of information flow is more informative. So I'm sharing information as I can out to the network, and it gets digested, hopefully. What I'd like to see is for it to become more of a collaborative network, where it becomes a forum for sharing and asking questions about open research. As we've already seen today, there's some really good stuff happening in Bristol, and there's some people with a very large knowledge of aspects of open research. What probably isn't happening so much at the moment is that being shared, in some cases within single faculties, but certainly between faculties and across the institution as a whole. So one sort of conceptual aim of the network is for it to move from this sort of informing mode where we currently are, perhaps, into a more collaborative network. But it's probably partly an evolution thing. I think we need to build it up and have a certain momentum, a certain number of people involved before we can start to move towards that more collaborative model. And this is where I may risk sort of moving into a bit of a sales pitch, so excuse me. But in terms of why get involved, I think it's that last point is the key thing. What I would like to see is for there to be a very active and loud, visible community of researchers and other staff across the university who are, and the local network provides a forum for them to share knowledge, share grievances, perhaps where the university systems aren't allowing things to happen or change. But also, more pragmatically, it also just provides a good way of keeping up to date with what's going on in the open research sphere, particularly things that are happening from UKRN, but also more generally. And in terms of things changing, it also provides lines of communication. For a start, it provides a way of contacting UKRN and maybe helping inform them what does work, what doesn't work, where experiences from Bristol and how things might be done differently elsewhere, and also upwards within the university. We have a link through the Research Culture Committee to the sort of executive management team. So if there are things currently in place that are preventing open research, preventing reproducible research from taking place, then the network provides a means of communicating that to higher management. How to get involved? The most simple thing is simply to keep tabs on that SharePoint site, which is updated, as I said, fairly frequently. Perhaps more conveniently, perhaps, is to sign up to the email list, and there's instructions on the SharePoint site how to do that, and then you'll receive a weekly digest in your inbox of latest news, events, and new papers and resources that have come out. But then more widely than that, just by sharing open research practices, promoting the work of UKRN and the local network across with colleagues who are perhaps less familiar, is all ways of sort of raising the profile of the local network. The blog I mentioned previously, I'd really like to become a way where we can showcase what's going on in Bristol. And following talk from me, I think actually Dan has already written a piece on the blog about his work, and he'll be talking about that next. But I would like to see it be seen as somewhere where best practice in open research or new ideas can be showcased and tested across the Bristol community. And finally, I just wanted to leave you with a few things to look out for in the future in the sort of open research area. First of all, as part of the open research programme I mentioned earlier, there were a number of train-the-trainer courses run earlier this year, and I think it's 14 or so people at Bristol have been trained now to run training courses on various open research topics. So over the coming months, those courses should start to come online within the university. Lavinia is here today, the Bristol Open Research Community Manager, who's responsible for sort of coordinating that. There'll also be a call for a second round of train-the-trainer courses. So if you're interested in learning how to train on an open research topic, there'll be adverts coming out for that later in the summer. Secondly, as you may or may not know, the university is relaunching its open research policy, which should, if nothing else, provide an incentive to be doing more on open research, doing more on reproducible research. That was due for launch later this summer. I haven't heard an update since that, but I suspect it might be later than that now. But that should be a useful document to have to refer to, particularly where you're trying to maybe convince colleagues that open research is the way to go. Having a sort of university policy around that should provide a much firmer platform for doing that. Thirdly, this is quite a long way ahead now. Next spring will be the next GW4 Open Research Week. The last one of these was held in autumn last year and provides a week-long programme of activities and events around open research, and it's now organised by the GW4 universities. So that's something to look out for. Perhaps get involved, perhaps present some of your work if that's appropriate. And then finally, in terms of sort of longer term planning, Ref 29 is on the horizon. And the reason I bring this up here is there is early signs that the Ref will place greater importance on how research is conducted and not just the research outputs. So the whole research, the open research agenda will be seen as more significant. And I think if that's the case, if open research is seen as a good thing in Ref, then that starts pulling the right levers at senior management level within the university. And also there's also talk of intermediate outputs, so code and data sets being given increased importance in the Ref process as well. So I think Ref 29 potentially again is a way that the open research agenda will gain greater importance and momentum within the university. And finally, that's the Reproducibility Network email address. If you have any feedback, ideas, questions, please do email that, and I'll do my best to respond. But I'll leave it there.